I've noticed that a lot of people struggle getting a job, keeping a job. And some of the stuff that we do is actually nonverbal communication. Did you know how important it is for your appearance to be? How important your appearance is, especially if you wear a uniform? Going to talk about that. One of the things I want to talk about today and this week is about the importance of appearance in the workplace. Now, I know as much as we think it doesn't matter, I found out the way you present yourself makes a difference between having a successful day, getting a promotion, or a better job. Well, you say, that's not fair. Well, the truth is, your appearance matters. The clothes you wear make a difference. The colors you wear make a statement. Did you realize that wearing a brown suit over a black one gives you a non-verbally weaker stance? There's a reason why politicians wear blue shirts other than photography reasons. Your brown suit could get you a less desired position in the office. If you look at some of the buddy movies, Jerry Seinfeld and George Costanza, you'll see that George always wears a brown blazer. The second person wears the brown color. Hair length and facial hair for men is still an unwritten rule that still works. If you're in security or a government position, the conservative style of dress is actually still in effect, no matter what the written rule is. Too many people have forgotten why proper business attire is important. Some companies prefer to allow and even encourage employees to dress freely or casually for comfort, and this tends to work well in those creative jobs. If you are self-employed, then you can look anywhere you want to. But if you have to contract or work with anybody else, you have to sometimes assume the role. Some companies will actually encourage or require a more defined and professional dress code to maintain a professional image of themselves and the business. That's what it's about, actually. When we get down to money and respect, it's about appearance too. Now, even though a one-size-fits-all or a universal dress code is not real, there are some guidelines to it. You should be modest. It's important to get attention for your work and not for what you wear. Be wary of casual Fridays if you are in civilian clothes. It's important to remember that the work week that has ended on Thursday hasn't really ended on Friday. It's still going on. You still got to be consistent with the previous 4 days of the week. You want to be comfortable, but it needs to be respectable. Be mindful that basic etiquette must accompany appropriate attire. I was at work the other day, and a lady came by wearing a dress with a split all the way up to her February, and it was distracting. Nice to look at, but inappropriate. It also gives off an inaccurate impression. Women should avoid too short hemlines, too tall heels, plunging necklines, and exposed undergarments. Sometimes folks are just over-sexualized in the office, and they want to be taken seriously. People can discredit themselves by looking too provocative. What do you want to be remembered for? What you wore or what you said? Here's a tip. Your jewelry should make noise. It's really distracting when somebody's dangling bangles makes noise when they move their arms. Tell me if I'm wrong. Even though Invictus makes some really good stuff right now, pay attention to your watch. Your facial hair shouldn't overwhelm your face. Now, I know in security jobs, it's really frowned upon if you have a beard or facial hair of any type. It is. Why is that? It's the image. Now, I know you have pseudofolliculitis. You have a shaving profile. I had one. I'm not going to talk about that right now. But I'm just telling you, you lose points for that, non-verbally. Nobody's going to say anything, usually. And if they mention it, then they actually mean it 5 times more than they spoke about it. Basic hygiene. Length of your nails, the color of your nails, lip gloss, eyeshadow. All that stuff takes away points from you. The problem with appearance is that it translates to performance. Whatever else we think about dressing for success, we need to be reminded that first impressions are everything, and we only get one chance to make a positive first impression. Next up, I want to have a conversation with my friend Ted, longtime friend, and we're just going to be sharing some stuff back and forth about the importance of how you look in uniform in the security realm. Now, if you're not in the security realm, just sit back and relax and hear two old guys talking. Or if you've been in this job or you're in it right now, hopefully something we say hits you right between the eyes. Everything you do doesn't have to be a struggle. That's the reason for this podcast. I'm trying to share some of the issues that I've learned over the years that I know can help you. And if it's not you, maybe somebody you know in your circle. See, not everything is applicable to you. Sometimes you have to become the one that everybody else runs to, the go-to person. Share this wisdom with somebody you care about. Ted, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Ken. Thanks for having Law Enforcement Alliance of America on your show. And as always, it's a pleasure to be here with you and your guests.
This week, I want to talk about something that's kind of off, but it's really related to both law enforcement officers and security personnel. How important is your appearance in the workplace? And I know a lot of people think that what you wear doesn't matter. As long as you present yourself in a good way, it's okay. But it's more than that. What's the truth about this whole thing about appearance?
Well, Ken, I think first of all, we have to be honest that you and I both come at this from a perspective that maybe is a little bit different than some other folks out there. We both come from the military side as well as the police side of the house. So Sure. We have, if you will, a double dose as it relates to uniforms and presentation. Sure. And then, sadly, you and I are here in the nation's capital watching a horrible evolution of what appears to be a dead police officer in Prince George's County, Maryland, who may have been shot friendly fire, largely because he didn't have the uniform that was recognized by his brothers in arms. And so we have both our own personal perspective from the law enforcement and military world, and we have a current breaking news story where, by all accounts, a great guy with a heroic heart may well have been killed, unfortunately, because he didn't have the, quote, uniform of the day on. And so whether we want to talk about the appearance in uniform for a post, or as we see the uniform of the day for civilians as they go through their life, I think it's easy to say that is important. How you present yourself, whether it be in your uniform or whether it be in your personal clothing, can be critically important. And in some circumstances, for those of us in the live and die world, maybe even an issue of death or survival. Obviously, not every case is that extreme, but if you're to run up on a situation with a uniformed security officer, you're going to make decisions about the professionalism and potentially the capacity to respond appropriately based in large measure on what you see in the uniform before you. You and I are similar in that we don't see the color of the skin. We see the person who's in the office, and then we make decisions based on first impressions, a lot of times in a tactical or dynamic circumstance, by what we think they're capable of doing. Do we think they're capable of making the situation safe? And a lot of that is informed by their uniform of the day, or horribly in some cases, lack thereof.
Which is the real reason why we wear uniforms. It provides instant recognizability. In an emergent situation, you don't have time to look and assess, and having somebody with a badge on, you automatically know they're emergency personnel. And you want to go to that uniformed person to help you make decisions, to get you off the X.
Absolutely true, Ken. We teach little children, when in trouble, go find the man with the badge, go find the man with the uniform. And that has been going on for, well, since before I was born, and certainly will probably go on well after I'm, worm food. But that carries with it a certain expectation that that person in the uniform, the person with the badge, will represent authority appropriately, will be able to manage the exigent circumstance, whatever it may be, and will bring a certain amount of maturity and perspective and hopefully skill set to the dynamic encounter that we're going through, or that the lost child is going through, or that the little old lady is going through. And I think your theme of this topic is apropos, because if you were to walk down a city street in the nation's capital today, you don't know what you're going to see when you see an alleged uniformed professional. You may walk through the door and see somebody who looks like Joe Crap, the rag man, rather than, a young, serious professional who is studying their field. And I can remember back when I was in the academy, they taught us about presence and about voice. And part of the presence is your uniform, and part of your voice is that bearing, that demeanor. Everybody who's been in any branch of the service can remember when they step off the bus and they're confronted by that first NCO in that STRAC uniform and that command voice that makes an impact that is absolutely indelible on your mind, usually the rest of your life. And we too often don't remember that our uniformed police officer, uniformed security officer, uniformed DHS personnel, what have you, are supposed to be leaders. They're supposed to be people that we can trust, people we can go to in a time of crisis, and people we can rely upon. For example, 9/11, the burning towers, those people are looked to make life and death calls. When somebody in uniform says, go back in, people will go back in to their death or not. They say go out, some will leave to survive. So it's far more important than just the sense of, how nattily dressed they may or may not be.
And people judge you by how you present yourself. So the nonverbal is, do you look professional? Do you carry yourself professionally? You can have 3 people standing next to each other, and you will judge who is either senior, the most professional, the one who's on the ball. And our folks, you can just scan the area right now and find out who in a group of 3 is not even with us. They're just they're just there. They're just bodies on site.
They're occupying space and time. And I would even go one point further, because I know your background as a firearms instructor. You can even make judgments about a person when they're not wearing a uniform and all they're wearing is their duty belt on the firing line. You can actually make judgments about who's a STRAC person and who's got their stuff in order and who's a person you would want to turn your back to in a time of crisis, based on just the most elemental components of their uniform, not even their full uniform. And when you put the full uniform in there, well, now you have many, many, many data points to check on. And I would point out as a child, so I'm prior service, I'm prior law enforcement, and my father was a career military. So as I grew up as a young man, I saw it as perfectly normal to shine your shoes. I saw it as perfectly normal to take a half an hour the night before to prepare your uniform of the day. And that's how you prepared for your work day, no matter whether you were an NCO, whether you were an officer, whether you were new or whether you were old. You took that same pride in your uniform, because that would send a message to everybody in your command, everybody you met outside of your command, and as you walked to work and as you came home from work. And that culture for the folks out there who didn't have the benefit of having a parent in the military, maybe they didn't see it. Maybe they don't have something to emulate. And if they haven't been around long enough, or they didn't go through an academy, or they didn't have the benefit of career, years of military service, maybe what we're talking about now is the first time, Ken, that they've ever heard people say that the uniform matters.
Yeah, it creates a sense of pride. It should be your presentation. I mean, even if you don't like the company that you're getting paid by, it should be personal to you that when somebody sees you on duty, they know you're the real deal. That's all as far as you have to go. You might hate your job. You might think you're higher, more standard. You should be higher than you are in your present position. But how you present yourself talks about you, not your company. The company comes second. First is you. Is this person on the ball? Do they know what they're doing? And most of the time, that presentation sucks. We blow the opportunity.
And you make an excellent point, and people who've never been through it don't know. They see a uniform for the U.S. Marine Corps. They see a uniform for an SPO. They see a uniform for a police officer, and they think, oh, well, that's the same uniform for everybody. And what they don't realize is that when they look at 25 guys or gals standing in uniform, they actually look different. There's a subset of those who have esprit de corps, pride. Call it whatever word you want. It doesn't really matter. But you hit on a very important point, because in that group of 5 or 10 or 20, if there's a handful that are wearing that uniform the way they're supposed to, it screams. It doesn't speak. It screams volumes about those individual troopers, service members, cops, security officers, whatever you want to call them. They're all, in this case, the same thing. They're people who have that individuality. And I know it may sound weird to some folks to be talking about individuality in a uniform, but we both know we've walked up to a post and seen a guy and thought, that gal is strapped. That guy's crease line is right. This officer is wearing his or her uniform with pride. And the other one over here is Joe Crap, the rag man. And I wouldn't ask him to park my car, let alone answer a tactical life or death decision. And it does speak volumes, and it does inspire confidence, or sadly too often lack thereof. And when we see an officer, whether they're an SPO or a police officer, and they're trying to use their uniform as part of that force continuum that's going to be followed by their voice commands, maybe open-handed techniques, God forbid, use of a defensive device or a firearm, it's an important component, because if they don't look like they command respect, if they don't look like they're in control of themselves, they're going to project that same vision and sense to the witnesses, and that will be in their statements as they begin to testify about why this person struck so-and-so with a baton, or why they shot him, or why the guy didn't seem to listen to the commands to drop the knife. So it can go everything from the high end to life and death of a police officer in PG County, that horrible case we have, all the way down to how it may impact, Grandma and Grandpa Kettle as they're reciting how they felt when they saw the people in the courtroom, 3 months later, 11/15, saying, oh, this person presented themselves professionally or not. And I hope that what we're talking about today maybe causes some folks to think about these things in a way that they haven't, if they haven't had the benefit of military service or uniformed police service or what have you.
Okay, so let's just dog on some people for a minute, because it's just too fun not to do so. Some people think it's pretty harsh that we should judge them because of their hair. What strikes you with that? Why is hair an issue?
Well, first of all, I would say bull hockey poop. Everybody judges everybody based on some rubric. It can be whatever. Oh, they're driving a nice car. Oh, they speak well. Oh, they've got a good-looking girlfriend. It doesn't matter. Our society is full of judgment. Now, for those listening who don't know, you're black. And for those who don't know, I'm white. And we've known each other a long time, and neither one of us judges anybody on the basis of color. But we will both judge somebody on the basis of how they wear a uniform, because it's a common language. It says, do you care or do you not care? Not, are you a good fill-in-the-blank color? Not, are you a good fill-in-the-blank political orientation? It really says to you and me and many others, does this person give a darn? Do they have pride? Do they have self-respect? And if they don't have pride in themselves, if they don't have self-respect, why should I immediately convey those values to them if they don't have them present in their own life?
Yeah,
and I know that may sound harsh, but it's true.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that work in a post with somebody else and have people look at them first and then walk by them to talk to me. And I'm thinking they're closer to them, but they've already dismissed them because that person, their demeanor was, they weren't paying attention. They were engulfed in their own whatever, and these folks needed something. and they went to the person who was paying them attention. It's the subtle things like that, and folks miss that every day.
And I will tell you this, that you're absolutely right. And it doesn't always necessarily represent the hard uniform versus the soft uniform. Sometimes it's that je ne sais quoi, that interest. Your head is up, your eyes are moving, you're greeting with the greeting of the day. And I actually had this happen to me the other day on a project in Washington, D.C. I was there in a, quote, soft uniform, and I was with a bunch of uniformed personnel. And the people in the building had a problem, and they came over to talk to me about the problem because I was looking at them and I was engaging them and I was showing an interest. And, those nonverbal cues, as we know as firearms instructors, that approximately up to 85% of the communication that occurs between human beings is the nonverbal communication.
That's a huge number.
It is. And think about that. That's damn near 90%. I mean, and when you put a uniform in the mix, now you got people really looking for it. And so there's ever a time that the nonverbal communication speaks at a loud decibel rating, it's when you're wearing a uniform. And if you don't care enough to look good and look competent and look perhaps even full of pride in yourself, then what is that message going to send to the people who see you in that uniform? It's going to be go right past them and go find a competent person who gives a crap about their job.
All right, so you're not in uniform. So you're wearing a suit. You're in a business attire. What? I know. If we're trying to help some people who are going for a job, and they're trying their best to make a good presentation, but again, they don't have anybody telling them. You and I have been on camera. We've been on television for different things. You have to wear a certain type of suit. The colors matter. Share some of that stuff with us, too, while we got a couple seconds.
Well, the first thing I would say, and this may sound really petty, but shine your shoes. There's a thing called Kiwi. They make shoe polish of every color known to mankind. It takes not a minute to shine your shoes. And I will tell you, I cannot overemphasize, shine your shoes. Make sure your clothes are clean. It almost doesn't matter if they're a little old as long as they're clean. And the concept of taking them out of the dryer and putting the pants on a hanger so that there's a seam in your trousers, and God forbid an invention called an iron that seems to have gone the way of the aardvark, press your shirt. And when you take the minute and make yourself look presentable. In the military, we have a thing called the gig line. And the gig line, for those people who haven't had the benefit of the U.S. Marine Corps service, such as yourself, the gig line is where you line your belt up with the seam of your trousers. And then once you're thinking about this, then you kind of tend to stand a little bit more erect, and your hands tend to come down to the seams of your pants. And all of a sudden, you're presenting yourself with this, I don't want to say, Billy Bad Butt kind of image, but competent and caring and clean and creased. Maybe it's the 4 C's, but you're sending the message that you care. And if you send the message that you care to a prospective employer, and they're choosing between 10 different prospective employees, and there's 3 of whom are graded as giving a crap, you're probably going to be in the right 3 out of the 10. And it's just a way to go through life, even if nobody is judging you. Caring about your attire, sending the most professional image that you can, and saying you cared enough to put 10 minutes or 20 minutes or 30 minutes. Speak volumes. Or some kiwi. The stuff only still costs I think $1. I have so many cans, I don't even know what it costs anymore, but stuff doesn't cost more than $1 or $2.
And this is good stuff. And I got to hit you back one more time. You had a test with the belt, man. It just made me laugh. So share that on our closing. All
right. Well, this is the official TED belt test. So you take everybody in life, and this is kind of a sexist test. It's more oriented towards men, and I'll state that right up front. But you walk up to a cliff, and you take their belt off their britches, and you hold them over the precipice with their belt. If they don't have a belt, they fall to their death. If they have a puny, weak, non-sturdy belt that nobody could hold on to, somebody grows fatigued, and they fall to their death. And if they go over the precipice and they have a good, sturdy leather belt or a ballistic nylon belt or any other belt of decent substance, the belt serves the purpose. It keeps their pants up and they come back off the precipice. And if at the end of the day we get rid of those people who don't have belts, maybe that's a first step towards a better uniform policy in the country. Said firmly, tongue in cheek, but there is some truth to it.
All right, Ted. Thank you, man. We appreciate you so much.
Anytime, Ken. Always here for you, brother.
All right. Again, that was Ted Deeds from the Law Enforcement Alliance of America.